You're watching Morning Mix. November is American Diabetic Month, a devastating condition that affects millions of people, pre-diabetes even more so.
Dr. Janice Coffin from Wellstar MCG Health joins us this morning to tell us more about this and what can possibly be done. Dr. Coffin, good to see you.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
It is funny, you did mention this just off of Halloween. We're talking about American Diabetic Month. So many candies, so many sweets. That's obviously a big thing. What are some of the statistics regarding diabetes mellitus?
Yes, so that is a great question. So right now there's about 37 million people in America, or about 11% of the population, that actually has diabetes mellitus. There's about 29 million that have been diagnosed, and there's about 8 million that have been undiagnosed. So they do have diabetes, they just haven't been diagnosed with that yet, and so they're not being treated for that. But the other alarming statistics, there's about 96 million Americans over the age of 18 that have pre-diabetes. And so that means their sugars are running a little bit high, and if they don't do anything to change that, they will develop diabetes. So diabetes is just one of those chronic conditions that's very prevalent right now in the United States and becomes more prevalent every year.
Okay, Dr. Coffin, let's break down what is diabetes mellitus and the difference between type 1 and type 2 DM.
Yeah, so another great question. So for viewers out there, just to let you know, we have a pancreas that produces insulin, and that insulin plus glucose gets into the cell, but that receptor on the cell has to work appropriately. So for type 1 diabetes, that means the pancreas isn't producing any insulin at all. So no insulin, and most type 1 diabetics, they are usually diagnosed younger, and they are insulin dependent right off the bat. For type 2 diabetes, the pancreas is still producing insulin, and then you have the glucose or sugar that's outside in the bloodstream. You have your cell, but if the receptor on the cell isn't working well, the insulin and glucose or sugar cannot get into the cell. So what makes that receptor not work well? Well, what we found out is that increased stress as well as obesity. So adipose tissue does not make that receptor on the cell work very well. So things that we can do to prevent type 2 diabetes is really just behavioral modifications, watching what we eat, getting out there and exercising. I have a friend that says anything that is out there that is white, we shouldn't be eating. So white rice, white bread, white potatoes, anything with white sugar in it, we want to either try to avoid or just limit that in quantities. So part of life is eating right, but we want to kind of maintain that sense of maintaining a balanced diet and getting out there and exercising.
I got to get rid of my loaf of bread at home.
Yeah, no, I was thinking a lot of things too, but there's always that substitution if you Google it.
There is, very much so.
Some people have heard this, I've probably seen this on the commercials before, they're like lowering their A1C. What is that hemoglobin A1C? What does that mean?
Yeah, so hemoglobin A1C, that is another great question. So it is an average of blood sugars over a 90-day period of time, so you do not have to be fasting to get this lab drawn. So an A1C of 6.5 or higher is considered diabetic. An A1C between 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetic. So again, getting an A1C drawn. So if you're overweight, have a family history, or if you have an elevated just random blood sugar, get an A1C done. What does an A1C again mean? So an A1C of 6% means on average your sugars are running 120. And then for every percentage point, you add 30. So if your A1C 7%, it's running, on average, your sugars are running 150. At 8%, 180. If you have an A1C of 12%, that means on average, your sugars are running 300. So talk to your doctor about getting this lab done. And again, insurance will pay for an A1C every 90 days or every 3 months.
Okay, good to know. Are there any other labs that people with diabetes should have drawn routinely?
Yeah, so another great question. So if you do have diabetes out there, you want to at least get what's called a lipid panel. Check your cholesterol and your LDL at least once a year. The American Diabetic Association states that if your LDL or low density lipoprotein, that's what causes those plaques on your artery that can increase your risk of stroke and heart attack. If it's not less than 100, you should be on a moderate to high dose statin medication. That's your pravastatin, your simvastatin, atorvastatin, or Lipitor. So if your LDL is not less than 100, Talk to your doctor about how can I lower that. Again, statin medication is by far the best thing for that. And again, for diabetics, you should get what's called a urine for microalbumin. That just looks for protein in the urine. If you are spilling protein, there are 2 medicines out there that will help with that. Those are your ACE inhibitors like lisinopril or benazepril, or your angiotensin receptor blockers such as losartan or valsartan. So again, A1C, lipid panel, urine for microalbumin, and at least you want to get those done on a consistent basis.
All right, we are unfortunately running out of time. Where can people get more information if they want to check out more information?
Yeah, so the American Diabetic Association is a great website to go to. They have diets, they have what does this lab mean and where should you go from there. Again, if you want to go to augustahealth.org/diabetes. We also have a lot of information, but if you have diabetes, please be educated on that. Get your labs done consistently. Talk to your primary care provider. And next week, we'll talk about medications in relation to diabetes mellitus.
All right, cool.
All right, Dr. Coffin, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.